going to use a little bit dual technique. Am I audible?
You are Amol. You are audible.
Okay, okay. Because now I'm using a mic. I mean, I'm using two three gadgets at a time to make it the voice clear.
Yeah,
And of
you are
course,
audible.
so I'll be also since I'm a professor, it's better for me. I use whiteboard. Okay. Of course, PPT is also there, so don't be afraid that only you'll be seeing me or whiteboard. There is a PPT, and of course, I'm sharing different slides from different PPTs which were prepared at different time, point of time. Okay. Those who are having, maybe you can turn off your videos just to save your internet bandwidth. Sometimes net has, I mean, net plays with us. Okay. So last week, those who have attended, we had a nice session, nice discourse by Dr. Shashi Menon on importance of biodiversity, how you can conduct it, and of course, he fairly touched upon superficially on how you can conduct it, different techniques. Then also he talked upon some of the examples like people biodiversity register and all that. So today, actually, I would like you to delve little bit deeper, not very too deep in biology. Okay, because at the moment I don't know how many of you are from biological background. But don't worry, I'm not going too technical today. It will be for general people. Okay, now I will try to keep things as simple as possible. So today's topic is about ecology. Okay, and yeah, one thing I would like to tell you before moving ahead, that since I'm using whiteboard, laptop camera is fairly not good resolution for it. So I'm using some different app and I'm connecting my mobile to it. So just give some time, or I mean, if I mean, no, some technical glitch, anything is there. So just bear with me for a while. Okay, if it takes some time. Okay, so during our school days, those who are into school now or in college days, uh, as far as I can make out, there are only two subjects of which, I mean, there are many, but two prime subjects of which you are afraid of. Okay, and because our education system is based on two subjects which take us ahead. Okay, not other, of course, other things are there, but that is main. The one is mathematics, of which I am still afraid of, and the other one is biology. Many of my friends, even in the field of wildlife, they are, those who are not from biology background, so they tell me that they are afraid of biology. The reason behind it is the different tongue twisters what we use in biology, different words which are probably difficult to pronounce in one go, and in botany you draw a bit of circular all those sections which can be boring at times. Of course, in zoology also you have to draw some critical and tedious and very complex diagrams of different systems. Actually, it's not like that. My personal liking was biology since start. So I went into biology. Okay. Now biological language, what I just talked about. Okay, I'm just giving you brief outline. Okay, just I mean this is a part of topic as well, because many times you do referencing on the internet or in the book, you'll come across biological words which can be difficult for you to understand, or to read, or to uh, make it grasp it, whatever. Okay. Actually, this is the old science, and I think, if I'm not wrong, a Greek Roman philosopher Aristotle is called as father of biology. He has written so many treatises on biology, and there are reports that there are proofs, in fact, that he had done dissections as well. So during that time, of course, English was not a common language. I'm talking about 2000 years ago and before, BC as well. So that time English was not fairly, I mean, it's not a language of the world that time. So things were started in Latin and Greek. Now when English became mainstream language, and of course biological studies also picked up, it was unanimously decided that this language of scientific terminologies in biology will be from Greek or Latin. So most of the word you will find in these biology are from Greek and Latin, because they were coined long ago, and of course there are dictionaries available nowadays also. Like when I get a new species, you have to give a name, you have to go back to the dictionary and decide based on Latin word how you can, Latin and Greek, how you can name the species. Okay, so biology itself is a joint word. Okay, a fused word, fusion word. Many such fusion words are there in biology. Okay, I think I'll switch off my screen so that yeah. So many of the words in biology are fusion words. Okay, so biology means, bio means living things, and logy means study. Okay, uh, so I think that word was also coined by Aristotle. Anyway, so we are going to see today little bit into biological aspect of documentation, because we wish to start some documentation project, and I hope that you will understand the importance of documentation. And yeah, last week those who were absent, it was I mean categorically presented that how citizen scientists are required for documenting. Okay, just 2 days ago or yesterday itself, there was a photo of a chopped, I think people tree or banyan tree from Dombivli, just for the sake of some building or whatever. Okay, so nobody knew what was the age of the tree, what was there on the tree, etc. Okay, had people around them, around the tree, had documented when it flowers, when it has migratory birds, what if any birds nest over there. So that becomes a data that could have been given to the municipality or authorities, and probable attempts could have been made to save it. Anyway, so what I would like to tell is, today we are going to see a little bit into ecology, a bit of ecosystem, a bit of habitat, a bit of niche, and something of the sort. Okay. At the end, if time permits, I will talk on field notes, but that can be probably another discourse, not at the moment. Okay. Now, I think I'll switch on my mobile camera. Just give me a second. Okay. Now, meantime, all of us, many of us, we go to the field and see so many things. Okay. Fortunately, there are a lot many. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Because I'm again.
You are. Amol, what happens? Our mics are off, and then suddenly when you ask this question, putting it on becomes difficult.
I mean, this is a technical thing we have.
You are on. Yeah, we are able to hear.
Delaying the response, which is fine. Yeah. So all of us, we go to the field and we try to document things, and I don't know. I mean, we see. Sorry, Dr. Sudhir, I'm not against photography. By the way, madam introduced me as I was doing photography. But of late, the last photographic tour I had was in 2014. After that, even my camera is not working at the moment. Lenses are given to one of my students, those who are using it. Actually, it's a bit good opportunity we have, that many of us have good cameras. We can afford good cameras, nonetheless, mediocre cameras, and they can help us in so many ways. Okay, just hold on. But what happens is many of us go on the field and normally just do photography for Facebook, Instagram, or something of the sort. Okay. Yeah, I'm just changing my camera to. I'll just write something for camera to focus. Okay, can you see? Okay, sorry, I'm not turned on the video. Sorry. This is how actually, yeah, you can see the screen now.
1 second.
Yes.
It is becoming visible. Yeah.
Okay. So most of us go to the field and do a lot of photography. Of late, I have purchased one lens which can be put on my mobile. Since I am inclined for macro photography, it is my prime, or I should say proverbial love to document micro world. Am I visible?
Yes, you are visible and your board is also visible.
Great,
You
great.
are appearing like a good teacher.
Okay. Now, see, okay, I mean, Madam told us that you can ask questions at the moment. If there is no question, there are two possibilities: that either lecture was too good, that I have given everything, or no question means you have slept in between. You did not totally understand right from the start. Okay. So, yeah, I think I will start with the. So, we go to the field and we actually, what we do is, there are two things I can identify, categories I think I can identify, is that when you go to the field, what you do is you try to see the, let's say, a bird or a snake or whatever organism or plant or flower, okay, and try to identify it. Okay. Now those who are new to the field, what they do is they just take a photograph and put it on some portal, and there are experts online. They can help to identify it. Okay. Now identification. If you see different books, if different resources, different literature, there are two names you will see in that. The first name is common English name, and the other name is something, the name which you have feared of in your school days or college days. So that is the Latin name or scientific name. Okay. So that name is also a different science, how to name it, how to understand that name. Because all these biological names, uh, though they appear confused or a bit difficult to pronounce, but there is a phonetics in that. Okay, so when you start repeatedly using it, you will definitely love it. You will definitely understand. Okay, so identification taxonomy is a separate branch which can take maybe another lecture. This is normally what we do when we are in the field. Now, those who are from non-biology background, those who have not gone to the area in the forest, field doesn't mean agricultural field. Field is what you are into the I mean, whichever area you want to be in, mangroves or grassland or mountains or whatever. So that is mean by the field. So you are there with your camera, your binocular, and you identify it. Okay. Now, what normally left behind, and normally what you don't, you as in I'm just using common, no, don't take the blame. Even I'm part of it. So what normally you don't note down is the ecology. Okay. Now, this is very important. Of course, there are many things which can be written down on this, but since our topic of interest for today is ecology, I am focusing on that. So ecology is again a fusion word. Okay, it has its origin in mind. Please don't mind for my handwriting. Okay, origin in Greek. Okay, so I'll write in capital O-I-A-O-S. Okay, oikos. Okay, oikos is a Greek word, means house or home, and logy is study. Okay, so the study of home. Okay, now ecology earlier was not used for specifically for biology. Now today I learned that many corporates are also using this word ecology and ecosystem in their day-to-day working. Okay, so oikos and oikos plus oikos plus LOGOS. So oikos has been indicated to eco and logos has been indicated to logic. Okay, so ecology is a oikos is home or house. So study of house. So ecology primarily is study of house where the organism lives. Okay. Now today, this today's topic includes plants and animals. Okay. Okay. So ecology is very important aspect which normally not recorded. Like many times we see photographers, they are happy that they have taken habitat shot. Okay, now habitat shot does not mean, it's not that only tiger is there in the photograph. The habitat where tiger lives or tiger was there, so that is meant by habitat. So it is a wide angle shot where you can see some mountain or grassland or forest or river or whatever, okay, or humans behind. So that is a habitat shot. So ecology is basically a subject, I told you, the study of house where the organism lives. Now, it is a big topic. It is not possible today to finish almost all components so nicely. Okay. A person who is studying ecology is called as an ecologist. Now, I can find a bit of analogy with architect, the person who designs our house or does a modification in our room. Okay, so that person studies your requirements, studies whatever other fields required, and accordingly or she decides the design of it. Normally that doesn't happen in nature; it is already pre-decided. Okay. Now, in when you are studying ecology, you cannot uh, rule out a terminology called as ecosystem. Okay, ecosystem. Again, this terminology is fairly widely used, I think, now in corporate world. Okay. Now, ecosystem is a unit in ecology. Okay. There can be multiple ecosystems in given area. Sorry. Now, ecosystem means an area where plants and the organisms, I should say, living organisms, biological organisms or maybe biological things, I should say, who live in the area where there are non-living things as well. Okay, so ecosystem you can define as a place where there is an interaction between organisms, between plant, between animal, and so on, and there's an interaction between non-living things and living things. Okay, so you can have something like this. In the ecosystem, you can have non-living things and living things. By the way, those who are from biology, this can be a repetition. Okay, maybe you may not find something new. But for those who are not from biology or left biology long ago, it is a kind of a reason. Okay, so ecosystem is composed of non-living as well as living. Now, living includes everything, whatever that has a life in. So that does not mean only animals, plants. In animals, you have different categories of plants, right? From single-celled organisms to the multicellular animals with the multiple trillions and trillions of cells like humans or big mammals. Even bacteria, they also come in living. Okay, there's a group of animals, I should say, or organisms which are on the verge of living and non-living, like viruses, like fungi. But of course, they show characteristics of living as well, non-living as well. So they are also part of, for study purpose, they are also part of living components. Okay, living factors of the ecosystem. Non-living factors include all the factors which are not they don't have life. Okay, so the other terminology used for this is normally, if you see, abiotic factor, and this is biotic factor. Okay, so abiotic factors you can think of so many factors like light, sorry, light, temperature, wind, air, climate. Then there are chemical factors like minerals, organic material like carbon, hydrogen. Uh, so many other this thing, abiotic factors are there. Phosphate, sulfate, pH. Then so many of them. Now they are there in the ecosystem. So interaction between these two, biotic and abiotic factors, interaction between biotic factors, okay, interaction between abiotic factors, okay, because these abiotic factors also interact within themselves, and as a result, what you get is an ecosystem. So ecosystem is a basic functional unit in any given area. Okay. Now, ecosystem you can divide again in two types. Okay. Just hold on. There's a call. Is that? Sorry. Am I audible? There was a call in between. Hello. Am I audible?
Yes, you are, Amol.
Yeah, sorry. No, there's somebody called me, so I think I got disrupted in between.
No,
Yeah.
no, you are audible.
So, ecosystem is a basic functional unit I told you. So there is an energy flow within ecosystem, energy flow within different ecosystems. Different ecosystems interact with each other, and like you can have multiple ecosystems in a given area. Okay. Now ecosystems can be divided again into two types. One is artificial and other is natural. Okay. Now natural ecosystem is the ecosystem what you see in the forest, okay, or in the areas where humans have not disturbed the architecture. Okay, it can be grassland, it can be anything. Okay, like any type of forest, ocean, lake, natural lake. Okay, so that is a natural ecosystem. Artificial ecosystem is a modified one, and it is. Sorry, again somebody is calling me. Just hold on for a while. I'll mute and come back. Yeah. So just you can raise your something in the chat box so that I'll know that I'm audible again. Because that
You
person
are
was.
audible, Amol. You
Yeah,
are
thank you.
audible.
Thank you. Thank you. So artificial ecosystem is the ecosystem which is modified by humans. So it is called as the anthropogenic activity on natural ecosystem. Now artificial ecosystems include lot many ecosystems. Okay, like what we are living in the city now is also artificial ecosystem. Our houses, our premises, roads, the gardens, the trees around ourselves, everything is artificial ecosystem. There is an ecosystem because there are organisms surviving there. Like in our house, normally when I take lecture on insects, I start by the activity of documenting, asking participants to document the insects found in their houses. So that list goes around 10, 20, 25, 30. Okay. So we have, even in our houses like this, we have insects in our house. So if you go out in your society premises, you will get rats, you will get dogs, you will get cats, you will get birds, maybe feral birds, maybe wild bird. Wild as in not domesticated birds. Okay. So that is our surroundings are also artificial ecosystem. Uh, uh, we build dams, okay, on the rivers. So that is also artificial ecosystem. We build, different roads. So roadside plantation can also become an artificial ecosystem. Then you can have multiple of examples you can write. Even agriculture or farming is a artificial, because we are altering agriculture. Farming is a monoculture. We are culturing paddy or any crop. So in nature you don't get monoculture. You get multiple species of plants surviving together. In farm you will get only rice or only cereal or only whatever you want to culture. So that is a monoculture. Although farm becomes a bit of um, closer to natural ecosystem, because it is not bound by human construction. Okay. Now, why I'm saying is this: when you are documenting, you are trying to identify species, try to segregate them where you have located it. If it is natural ecosystem, fine. How to write that down? Let's see some other time. But you can write down, like we are having bird count in Thane. So in Thane as well, you have got some natural ecosystem like forest around. But when you are taking a stroll along the specific way, trail along the specific way, you are passing through artificial ecosystem. So please note that down. If you are not I mean, not in the sparrow farm, but if you are going anywhere, you are traveling along the railway line, you are traveling on the route, you find something, because wildlife or animals or birds or plants are everywhere. It's not that they are restricted to some area. Okay, so they are everywhere. So write them down, and along with that, you have to write down whether they are found in artificial ecosystem or natural ecosystem. Now, since we are talking of documentation, this becomes very important. Like I mean, probably I can put somewhere farming in between, somewhere. Okay. Now you can find some species in cities or near to the city, so which is not their natural ecosystem. Now, when you note down that you have seen, let's say, some unusual organism which is not supposed to be found in the city, it is recorded in artificial record. Now, it is important that you note down its occurrence or a place where it was found. So you may deduce it, or you may give your data to somebody to identify why that organism is there. Okay, so that becomes a cascade reaction one after other, so that whether to find out whether they are showing any trend of moving out of the forest, if it is a tiger, if it is a leopard in a national park, why it is coming out, is there any problem inside? So that becomes all next one after other question. But the citizen science like us, when we are documenting only or photographing only species, you should note down this. Okay, maybe those who are photographers, take a photo of the subject what you want. After that, just take a photograph of the habitat or ecosystem behind. So that gives an idea of where they are surviving. Like in Mumbai, there was a famous picture earlier long ago, flamingos with a RCF factory behind in Mahul. So you get thousands of flamingos on mud flat, and behind you will see a huge chimneys of those factories, RCF chemical fertilizers. Okay, so you can make out where are the organisms. If you show only photograph of a flamingo, you can't make out. I mean, you as it, I mean, nothing, no science comes out of it. Okay. Now there a time has come for us to become a citizen scientist, because the rate we are losing diversity or altering our diversity ecosystem, it is very important to note down what is happening. Okay, anyway, that will come later. So, artificial, field, and natural ecosystem I just talked about. Okay, now we are not concentrating this at the moment. Okay, when you are documenting animal, let's say in the field, let's forget about artificial at the moment. Okay, because many of you go to Dombivli, many of you go to what is it, Malandar area. So you observe lot many raptors have started coming. Many of you go to Lonavala to photograph lesser creatures. Okay, so when you go there, note down whether it was in a field, note down whether it was in the forest. If it was a field, which field? Okay, if not possible to identify on the spot, take a photo. There is no harm in taking photo and getting it identified later on. Okay, if it is in nature and natural ecosystem, which plant it is, what area it is occupying. Okay, so that kind of documentation is very much required. Okay. Now, I think I should just hold on. Okay. Now, now ecosystems again you can classify on two types. Okay. First is terrestrial and other is aquatic. Okay. Terrestrial means the land. Aquatic means water. Okay. So in terrestrial you can again classify like forest, grassland, maybe desert, and so on. Okay, multiple. Okay, so you may find that forest and grassland are together. You call it as a savanna. Okay, if you are in a tropic. Okay, now forest also you can divide in different categories. Whether you are in deciduous forest or tropical forest, so many of them. Okay, so why this is important is it decides because this is an ecosystem. It is going to provide natural resources, uh, biotic, abiotic, to the organism which you are seeing, which you are photographing, which you are documenting. So it is very important to note down. Okay. Sometimes the animals are in transit from one forest to the other forest. They pass through grassland. So incidentally, you hit upon the animal, hit upon anything, you see the animal when it is a grassland. Just note it down. See it after 2 days, 2 weeks, or ask somebody to I mean, locate it. If the animal is not moving out of the grassland, then there is some problem. If the animal has moved, that means it was in transit. Okay. Yeah. So in aquatic, you can have. Can you guess what can be two basic categories? I should say three rather. The first one is marine, ocean. The second one is estuarine. Third one is freshwater. Okay. Uh, Marine, of course, we know it is all related about the ocean. Estuarine is where fresh water from river meets ocean. So their salt contained in the water are intermediate. So biodiversity over there is bit different than these two. And fresh water is, fresh water also you can divide in rivers, lakes, ponds, lakes. Also, you can have still water lakes or lakes formed by rivers. Then there are ditches. There can be lakes which are perennial for the year, permanent, or some lakes they dry up in monsoon, dry up in dry season. Okay, so that thing can be noted down. Okay, so these are the sorry, I forgot. These are the natural ecosystems I'm talking about. Okay, now we are going to natural ecosystems now, not about artificial ecosystems. Of course, when we are talking of documentation, everything should be documented, where it was located. Okay, so in terrestrial, there are different. Of course, I'm giving representative ecosystems. So there are different types of ecosystems you will get in the area. Okay. Now, since this is a topic of ecology that involves a bit of adaptation. Okay, adaptation of the animals. Now, adaptation, all of us know what it is that when you move your residence to some new place, nearby building or new town or new country or whatever, you have to adapt to the lifestyle of the local surroundings. Okay, so you may have to change your timing, you may have to change, adapt to food habits, something like that. So what happens in nature is animals are trying to adapt continuously to the environment. No animal is, I should say, completely adapted. And what happens is there is a process called as the evolution. There is a complete, what should I say, that evolution is a continuous, slow, non-discernible process within our generation, within 2000 generations. But this process is going on. When we say tiger, it is a supreme hunter, but still it is evolving to some extent. We don't know how, but it is evolving to the habitat. Okay, so you see plant or animal, you should see the adaptation from the animal. Sometimes you should see the animal when you see an animal, for example. What you have to look at it. you cannot see, you may not see the activity of the animal, but uh, you have to look at the morphology of it. Morphology means how does the animal look, how does the animal appear. Okay, so that gives a bit of idea on the ecology of the adaptations of that, and based on adaptation, you can decide the ecosystem where it was found. Okay, for example, if I give you an example of, let's say, egret, a bird which is found very common around. So what adaptation egret have? They have a long beak. What does that mean? Long beak is mean for darting and catching something. Okay, different beaks you will get in insect eater or fruit eater. Then look at the legs of the egret. They are slender, long, I should say naked, that is not covered with any feather. So what does that indicate? It does not live in dry environment. It lives in aquatic environment, semi-aquatic environment. So sometimes it is on the land, many times it is in the water or a mud. So if the egret has feathers, they may get soaked in water, they may get mud coat on them, and it will be difficult for egret to fly off. Okay? So over the period of time, egret has evolved like that. If you see say eagle, so what adaptation of birds of prey? What adaptations they have? All I should say predators, they have binocular vision. So you will see eyes located in the front of the skull, front of the head. Okay. Then long beak, not long beak, pointed beak. Okay, to tear off flesh. Strong on the wing, curly legs, and there are long talons. So these are the features of raptor or birds of the prey. Then one bird of prey which normally we put it in raptor, but it actually rarely hunts. It is the vulture. Okay, it is a scavenging bird feeding on caracatus. Okay, it has one of the best smelling sensation, smelling adaptation in probably bird world, and the other major adaptation it has a naked neck and head because it pokes into the dead animal. So having feathers is not advantageous. Okay, there are few vultures with the feathers on their head and neck, but observe them; they don't go into the correctly killed animal. Okay, just observe that. Okay, so this is about the adaptation. Even in plant, you have to identify different adaptations. This is a ecology is a very big topic. I cannot touch on every one of it. But remember, when you see a animal or plant, try to see the adaptation. Just don't identify it as a egret, median egret, or greater spotted eagle. Okay, just of course in birds of prey you will get common adaptation plus extra adaptations based on the habit. Okay, so try to look at the plant or animal as a through the adaptation point of view. Okay, so you may find that sometimes it is behaving something weird. So you have to note it down. Take a photo if possible. So it is something different than normal adaptation bird has. Okay, so and that adds to the value. Like earlier, we were not knowing that intelligence about the crow, but you now you know how crow is how clever it is. Okay, so now I would like to touch upon difference between few things. Okay, uh, I think I'll okay. So I have written down about ecosystem. Okay, just while ago I talked about habitat. Now remember, in day-to-day life of our expert wildlifer, we use this word more common than this. Okay, but habitat is actual physical address where organisms live. Okay, whereas ecosystem is made up of different habitats all together. Okay, now I am trying to have some diagram over here which will make things clear. So let's try it out. Please bear with me if I do some mistake. Okay, so let's try. about ecosystem. Example as a forest. Okay. Now, uh, now in forest, what type of habitat you can see? Okay. Here we'll write down organism, and here we'll write down, let's say, uh, producer. I'll explain what is that. Producer, primary consumer, secondary consumer, tertiary consumer. Okay. Now, let's see some habitat in forest. Uh, Maybe I can say terrestrial. Okay. Now we have seen terrestrial ecosystem as well, but that is a different thing. Which is a habitat is animal where it is living. Uh, Actually, let's say for example, uh, let's say take a, let's take a banyan tree. Okay. So what is the habitat of a banyan tree? You should not say forest. It is a terrestrial or land dwelling. It is found on the land, right? It is not found in the water. Okay. Now, what do we do? It is a producer. Means it is producing organic material, preparing its own food by uh, capturing solar energy. Okay. Photosynthesis. Plants are green, they capture energy. We are going to see that in a while. Okay. Then let's see again terrestrial. Okay, here let's say, okay, I'll give some different examples. Again, a plant, all of you know what is orchid. Okay, all of you know what is orchid. Can somebody tell me habitat of orchid? Don't just say forest. Can somebody give me a habitat of orchid? Is it found in water? Is it found on land? Where it is found? Orchid is a epiphyte. Means epi means, again epi is a fusion word. Epi means above or on, and phyte means plant. So which is found on the plant. You will not find, of course there are ground orchids, but that is different. Okay. So majority of the orchids you will find them on the tree branches. Okay. So they like to have shade. They don't like direct sunlight. Okay. Of course, they are found in the forest. But what is the habitat? The habitat is arboreal. Arboreal means on the tree. Okay. Again, they are producers. They have green leaves. Okay. Now let's see terrestrial. Again, let's see deer. Any type of deer or antelope, whatever. Okay. It is found on the land. It is not found on the tree. Okay. What does it do? It is a herbivore. It is called as a primary consumer. It feeds on plants. Okay. Now again in terrestrial, you can take, let's say, a tiger or a leopard. Okay. What does it do? It is a super predator. It is called as the tertiary predator, which is at the top of the food chain. I'll just talk on food chain after a while. Okay. Let's see aquatic. Now, in case of forest ecosystem, there are aquatic habitats as well. Sometimes they are called as the aquatic ecosystem within forest ecosystem. You can use that term, no problem. Okay. For example, you get any fish. Okay. So in fish also you may get some primary consumer, secondary consumer, some tertiary consumer. Okay. So you can make out that in a forest there are multiple habitats are present. Okay. Don't call ecosystem as a habitat. Habitat is a one step down. Multiple habitats, there can be many. We are not going in detail on that. So multiple habitats make ecosystem. Okay, is that clear? Now I'm going to talk something on this after a while. Now there is another concept what is called as a niche. Okay, habitat and niche, they are probably sometimes confused, sometimes they are fairly easily understand. Okay. Now habitat I told you is the actual physical place where the animal lives. We have seen plant and sorry, on the land, in the water, etc. Okay. Now there is a concept called as the NICHE, niche. Niche is the ecological address of the organism. Now what does that mean? It is the job, I should say, of the organism in the ecosystem. Or nowadays our terminology has evolved, what we call it as a ecosystem service. What does that animal do in a ecosystem? So that includes interaction with the animals of the same species, different species, interaction with abiotic factors. Okay. Now niche is a specific area. It is not a physical area. It is an ecological area. Okay. I'll give you one example which we can compare with my own example. Okay. I'll give you my example. Now, my physical address is Somaya College. Okay. Physical address where you will find me when college is open. That is my physical address. But what is my niche? I'm a professor. So you will find me in the laboratory or in the classroom teaching. In college habitat, there can be multiple niches. There can be non-teaching staff in the laboratory, non-teaching staff in the office. Okay, there can be what is that, house staff, housekeeping staff. Okay, so there can be students. Okay, which are not into. I mean, they don't teach, they learn. So that niche is different. Okay, so in a college as a physical habitat, you will get multiple niches. Okay, so similarly, in a given ecosystem, there are multiple niches available. Uh, and that niche is normally cannot be changed. For example, um, if I say about tiger, best example I can say, easily understandable. So what is the niche of a tiger? It is a tertiary predator. It is a super predator, top of the food chain in any in a forest ecosystem. Okay? Now, what does it do in the forest? It keeps a check on herbivores. Correct? So that is the ecosystem service done by tiger. Now, if you shift tiger from forest to the grassland, it will be difficult for tiger to survive because tiger is not adapted for grassland. Pure grassland, I'm talking about, not the grassland within the forest. Pure grassland. Like in lion, for tiger it will be difficult because it is not adapted. But can it change its job? No, it has to feed on other organisms. It cannot become herbivore. Okay, if you put tiger from forest to the cage, that does not mean that you provide tiger with the normal food what he eats. You have to give tiger a meat. Okay, so it is a carnivore. So that is the niche what has been occupied by the organism, and that cannot be changed ideally. Okay, so there are animals which have a smaller niche, and there are some other animals which have broader niche. For best example I can give is crow. Okay, crow eats so many things. So you can find crow in a forest, you can find crow in a village, you can find crow in a city. So it has adapted to survive on multiple, let's say, food or habitat. So it can survive in city habitat, it can survive in forest, it can survive in grassland, whereas tiger cannot. Okay. Now there are two types of niches. One is fundamental niche and other is realized niche. What is that? It's very simple. Don't get bogged by too many terminologies. Just understand. If you find it difficult, we can have discussion. Okay. Now here on the y-axis you can put resources, and here you can put down a density of the organism. Okay. Fundamental niche is the ideal niche. So you get normal distribution. Okay. So if you take an example of a tiger, so ideally tiger will require so many herbivores, not only cheetah, not only sambar. Okay. So this is the fundamental niche. It is the ideal niche, ideal condition. Okay. Whereas nowadays, because of the shrinking habitat, increased number of tiger is actually surviving in this span. So right now for tiger, niche is like this. So in some forests you don't get nilgai. Some forests Chital, sorry, Sambar deer number is less. They are there, but number is less for different reasons. So tiger cannot prey on there. So that is a realized niche. Okay. Again, I can give you a simple example with our day-to-day life. You are traveling in a local train. In a second class, if you are traveling, you are supposed to accommodate 4 persons on a single bench. So that is a realized niche because of the population pressure. What is the ideal niche? Ideally, there should be 3 people on the bench, but actually there are 4. So clear what is meant by niche? Okay. Now I think I will switch off the camera and I'll show you the pipet. Okay, let's go back. Just give me a minute. I'm coming back to my seat. Okay. Sorry, how do I? Yeah, I think I'll switch off the camera. Yes. Now, can I present window?
Yes, sir.
Well, I can't see. Okay, just hold on. Got it. I can share my screen now at the moment, and I will let me know. Can you? Are you able to see?
Yes, Amol, we can
Yeah. So
enlarge. I think so. You can enlarge your screen.
yeah, just hold on.
You go on the
So,
slideshow mode.
yeah, just hold on. Probably we are going little late, but I don't know. Topic is too vast. So this is these
Yeah,
are
but
these
one
are
more. What I wanted to say is one more thing you can do. Since
yeah.
you are going to the very basic level and it's nice, you can split your lecture also. I mean, no need to complete it in hurry. You can take it next time
Yeah,
also.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So this is the oceanic divisions. Means when you say ocean, it's just not like this. You can divide these oceans into different areas. Okay, like this. I will not dive deep into these oceans, but many of those birders they know uh, uh, pelagic birding. You go on boat and watch those birds. Okay, so this is how ocean is divided. Now just look at the right side of the screen and you will see that below 200 meter of depth, the zone is called as the aphotic zone. Aphotic zone means there is no light, a darker zone. So sometimes what happens, because we are talking about documentation, what happens is sometimes you'll find that some deep sea animals have come ashore. So that means there is some problem. Okay, so you need to report it to some oceanographer or marine biologist. So there can be different reasons like tsunami or earthquake in the in the in the ocean. Okay, yeah. So I think I'll go to the food chain. Okay, now food chain is present in every ecosystem. Now what does it mean? Take minute. What does it mean? Food chain is actually a reaction to eat and being eaten. Okay. Now the producers are the plants, primary consumers are the herbivores, the vegetarians which eat plants. Then there are secondary and tertiary consumers which are carnivores. Now secondary consumers can have some uh, carnivore as well as herbivore as well, and tertiary consumers are the topmost predators in the food chain. In any given ecosystem, you'll find these basic 4 steps in a food chain. So herbivore will eat plant, carnivore will eat herbivore. Okay, and the word you will find normally here, which I have written down there, it is a trophic, but not the trophic. Okay, be clear. Trophic is related to feeding. Okay, now in an ecosystem, you will find multiple food chains linked together, and what is called as a food web. So this is kind of a food web you can get in a sanctuary. Okay, I mean this is a very basic food web I have drawn. It can be more complex. Okay, more complex. Okay, but always at the base of the food chain basic food chain, you will find that trees, grasses, and shrubs are there. Okay. Okay. Now, this is a kind of, I think I'll go to this model first. Now, this is the energy transfer model which was proposed by scientists in 53. Now, producers are the organisms which trap solar energy into their body and convert it to the organic material, the plant. Okay. There is no animal, except there are few smaller organisms, but no animal known to create own food in own body. They have to depend either on plant or either on the animal. Okay. So plants produce lots and lots of organic material. What we see, actually what plant we see is organic material. Okay, because of photosynthesis they convert it to organic material. Now they have the highest energy content because they are directly taking energy from sun. Okay, then there are primary consumers which feed on the plant, but some of the energy is lost in between. I'm not going in detail of this. Okay, then there are secondary consumers which feed on primary consumers. Then there are tertiary consumers. So here you can see that the diameter of the pipe as well as the box size is also going on reducing. That means the energy content at the producer level is very high. Some energy is lost in between and very few energy goes to the next level, that is to the herbivores. So box size has reduced, pipe size has reduced. So as you go away from producers, the energy content and energy transfer is reduced. Now here is what I mean to say. If plants have 100% energy, only 10% is passed on to the next level. Now what does it mean? Energy means what? The primary consumers are feeding on plants. So whatever organic material they have trapped, it is going to the next level. Okay. So you can see that tertiary consumers have only 0.1% of energy what plant has produced. Okay. It is a bit difficult to understand, but I'll give you a simple example. Of course, plant we cannot compare. Let's compare a deer and a cheetah. Okay, sorry, antelope and a cheetah in African grassland. Okay. Now here you will see I have given a picture of a battery which is slowly draining as you go up. Okay. Now a antelope in African grassland is a primary consumer. Okay. It feeds on plant. They are able to digest carbohydrates. So they have very high energy available. You see cheetah, it is feeding on antelope. So it is not feeding on carbohydrates. It is feeding on protein of the organism of the antelope. Okay. Now breakdown of carbohydrates yields lot of energy, whereas breakdown of protein does not give you a lot of energy. Okay. Antelope can run for kilometers. Okay, because its physiology can extract a lot of energy from carbohydrate digestion. Whereas if you see cheetah, it cannot run for longer distance. It can be fastest organism, but for a shorter period of time. Okay, so that shorter sprint of that energy outburst is only because of the muscular power. Okay, after that the cheetah will dry out of its all energy and it has to stop. Whereas antelope can go on running and all. Okay, now coming to India, if you keep deer in front of tiger, okay, if you put a race of deer and tiger, who will win? Definitely deer. Again, it is feeding on carbohydrates. Okay, tiger is feeding on herbivores. It is feeding on protein. So protein gives you muscular power, a strength, whereas carbohydrate digestion can give you endurance, okay, or a mileage in common words. So a deer can easily outpace a tiger, but if you put them for a boxing or a one-to-one fight, what will happen? A single blow from a tiger can kill deer, because tiger has built up lot of muscle. Okay, just see the forearm of a tiger and compare that with the deer. definitely tiger has lot much of power. Okay, so that is mean by the energy transfer from one level to the other. Like lion, you will see 20 hours per day they just do nothing. They have to conserve the energy. Okay, let's go ahead. So apart from this food chain I told you, primary consumers, uh, right from plants to carnivores, there's the other parallel world of parasites and decomposers. Means every organism dies, falls into the of natural death, falls into the soil or water, and those decomposers they play a vital role. There are mammalian decomposers like hyena or jackal. In birds, you will get there are carrion pickers like crows can do that. Then vultures are there. Okay. Now, when you're documenting something different, like if you see hyena hunting, because hyena does little bit of hunting, it does not rely totally on waste. So you have to note it down that you have seen hyena hunting. So that means hyena also extracts energy not only from its scavenging activity but from hunting as well. So the niche or the job of the hyena has more profile into it. Okay, like you will see sometimes it is known that tiger eats grass. Okay, so earlier people were amazed to see that why tiger eats grass, but later on it was found out that it does it for its, for the stomach, right? So documentation was important that time. Okay, I think I'll go a little bit of ahead in the topic. Now I touched upon abiotic factors. Now this is the slide which I prepared for my UG undergraduate lecture. It is about the factors that influence or regulate bird migration. Okay, I have written over here extrinsic factors regulating migration. Extrinsic means abiotic factor. Okay, so there are different biotic factors, and in migratory birds, you know, there's a feeding ground and breeding ground. Sorry, a big vehicle is going on from outside. Yeah. So now the season in Mumbai, you start getting migratory birds. Where do they come from? They come from northern hemisphere, northern part of northern hemisphere. Okay. Now why so? They will not come in June. Of course, there are few, but they will not come in June. Why? Because in June there's a lot of food available in northern hemisphere because there's a summer. But as summer goes on declining, sunlight goes on declining, temperature goes on declining, moisture goes on declining, and that has an effect on humidity, temperature, and of course on the food on which birds feed, maybe herbivore, carnivore, whatever. Okay. Other part of it, sunlight. When I say sunlight is reduced, that also change day and night length. Okay, nights become more than the day. Okay, now all these factors they influence the biological clock of the bird. There's an organ, vital organ called as the pituitary gland or pituitary gland, sometimes called, in near our brain, a master gland which controls all of our activities, all of our emotions. So that abiotic factors influence pituitary gland. Eyes of the bird, stomach of the bird, skin of the bird send messages to pituitary that temperature is going down, food is changing, and so many things. So pituitary will start sending messages. It will go to one of the effects is on the gonads, that is the genital organ, or not organ, testes and ovaries. Okay, if testes and ovaries reduce in size, that means don't confuse with progressive and regressive here. Okay, because birds are migrating to some other area. So in that case, it is not good to have young one. So the sex hormones, that is testosterone and estrogen, those levels will start reducing. Okay, so bird will have an urge that I should not stay here. Okay, then there's a instinct response in the bird activity as well. If this food is not available, I'll go for the other food. If the food is also not available, I will try to move out to new area. Okay, before that I will try to gobble up as much as food possible so that I need energy to go out. Okay, some birds will start aggregating. Okay, and that is the indication that they are starting their migration somewhere. Okay, so this is how extrinsic factors or abiotic factors influence. So in our documentation purpose, suppose you see a big flock of some migratory birds, please note it down. You may not be able to count the organisms, count the birds, but note them down that you have seen a big flock. So what happens is, I'll just switch on to the next slide. So this is the slide. So look at the wintering ground corner, right hand corner. So there's a first circle over here. Okay. So this is, suppose say this is Mumbai. So when these birds they arrive in Mumbai, some of the birds they are in a group. When they arrive in Mumbai, they will split to their respective areas because that is it's a, what should I say? It's in their genes. So I want to go to Uran. I want to go to, let's say, Bhigwan. I want to go to Alibag. Okay, but first let me come to Mumbai area. So all of us, we will come from Siberia, will come via Gujarat, and we will then scatter when we are in Mumbai. Okay. So what I want to say is, initially you will say you will find big group of migratory birds in October. After a while, they will move. Some of the birds will remain, some will go to the next stopover. Okay, so noting down is important, very important, because big flock you have seen, that means it is a first entry to the area. Okay, now in my society, there's a tree where Asian brown flycatcher comes every year without fail in the 3rd week of October. Okay, and it goes somewhere in the 1st or 2nd week of November. It is gone as in migrated somewhere. So it was a stopover. So it utilizes local food, local abiotic factors, and moves to the next area. Okay. While going back to its whichever area it has come from, it doesn't go through this plan. So while in February or March, I don't see that bird. Okay. Now what I can deduce, it doesn't require a big scientific knowledge. What does it mean? That the bird is migrating from some area, going to its wintering ground where it is going to spend its winter. It passes through Thane city or through my locality. But while going back to its house where it is going to breed, it doesn't pass through my area. Now why is the area or of the study? Okay, because it is possibly using some abiotic factors which are suitable to that bird. Okay, so I'll just switch fast upon the animal interaction. So there are different types of interaction you will record in the wild. So predation is where the predator is feeding on the prey. Then there is the mutualism where it is like a banking system. I am also benefited, bank is also benefited. So organisms are also benefited. Okay. I think, madam, should I stop for the question?
What I was wondering, Amol, is that the topic, if we can split it and part of it, if you can take it next week, next time, it will be easy for the non-biologist to digest it, because you want to correlate all this with the biodiversity projects also, isn't it?
Yeah. So probably the interaction thing I will take in the next lecture.
Yeah, correct. So you can stop here and people can ask questions if they wish to.
Let me check if anything I have missed. Yeah, this is, I want to show you the importance of biodiversity documentation. Okay. Yeah, I'm just opening. Yeah. So you create a document. Okay, multiple documents, and that becomes a database. Now this database should be useful to scientists for deducing something. It can be used for education. It can be used for dispersal. Dispersal means there can be exchange between different person. You can have some videographic documentation, photo documentation, or whatever. Okay. The most vital part is that database should penetrate to the policymaker. That is not happening. Okay. Classic cases of forest getting cut down. So the policymakers ideally do not know what is there. So for that purpose, citizen science documentation is very important. Okay, it can be talked on too much in too depth. Okay, so maybe I will have a lecture at some other time. I think I'll stop. Thank you very much for patiently listening.